With just one phone call, you can be on your way to acquiring solid, practical tools that will affect positive change. Change that will motivate, challenge, inspire, and empower your entire organization to achieve increased performance, productivity, and profits. Ron Archer, recipient of the prestigious Martin Luther King Leadership Award and recent inductee of the 40/40 Hall of Fame, is the founder and chairman of Archer and Associates.
Dare to be a leader, dare to stand alone. Dare to have a vision of excellence and dare to make that particular vision known. Good evening. Again, my name is Ron Archer. I am an industrial psychologist, and I've spent the last 12 years of my professional career helping National Football League teams, corporations, universities to recognize today that teams are really more like organisms than they're like organizations, and that successful team building today is more of a continuous process rather than a singular project. The reason that we say that teams are more like organisms is that teams have what is known as a life cycle. And like people, we grow through various stages of development. We have childhood and we have adolescence and adulthood. Well, teams, football teams, corporate teams, customer service teams will travel through 5 distinct stages. Stage 1 is the honeymoon stage. Stage 2 is separation anxiety, role clarification. Then, of course, there's unification. And stage 5 is maturation. And in our research and our studies, it takes a team no less than about 3.5 years to matriculate through those 5 stages with clarity, maturity, and understanding. My friends, we are going to stress the difference tonight between casual involvement with teams and personal commitment. When I work with the Green Bay Packers and the Pittsburgh Steelers, the players and the coaches there are not simply casually involved with their mission and game plan and ideas, but the players and coaches are personally committed. Huge difference. It's very similar to ham and eggs. Personal commitment and casual involvement. How so? Well, with ham and eggs, the chicken was casually involved, the pig was personally committed. Huge difference. One could lay and walk away, and one was there to stay. And we're going to talk about why so many American organizations today, like Johnson's Wax and Texas Instruments and your organization, are moving toward this phenomenon we call teams, because, my friends, it truly is an American revolution, and how we are growing our organizations to believe today that the people who do the work every day have the capability, the intellect, the intelligence, the charisma to do it, and we have to learn how to lead, follow, and get out the way to maintain the excellent performance we have in organizations today. John Kennedy wrote these profound words about teamwork, and I quote, he said that we have come over on different ships, but that we're in the same boat now. That we either learn to work together as friends or perish as fools, for a high tide will raise all of our ships. Even the great philosopher Hegel from Germany wrote these words about teamwork during his time, and I quote, he said that truth is not found in a thesis, nor is truth found in the antithesis, but that truth is found in the emergent synthesis that reconciles the two extremes. And meaning for us today in American organizations that none of us truly is smarter than all of us. That if my organization can out outthink yours, I'm going to outwork yours. And the old organizational stovetop pipeline, that one leader today cannot know enough, about enough, fast enough, to do enough, to maintain enough, to keep an organization competitive. We have to have a compelling desire to work together, to think together, to innovate together, to truly make a difference in our work lives and to maintain a global competitive advantage. And in our research with football teams, corporate teams, we have discovered some secret ingredients that we believe can help you to have a breakthrough and not a breakdown, and to understand that teamwork is phenomenal and essential for our long-term success. But before I go any further, I want to give you what I call a psychological listening test. I give it to my football players, to my corporate managers who come to our institute for training on leadership, and we've discovered that dynamic team members have the capability to adroitly separate fact from fiction and myth from reality. In essence, how well do you listen? Great team coaches, great team members have excellent listening capabilities. And because this is a learning organization, I know you've come prepared with something to write with and write on. So if you will, please, working with your team members, grab a piece of paper, something to write with and write on. And I want to give you very quickly a psychological listening test. As Whitney Young once wrote, it is better to have and not need than to need and not have. So having something to write with and something to write on as we share as team members, what I'd like you to do for me, please, on a sheet of paper somewhere that you have, please number that paper or page from 1 to 7 vertically. That, of course, is up and down, of course, 1 to 7. At the bottom of that paper or page, please print out your full name. It might be Ron Archer or D. Miller or John Smith or Susan Howard, that we recognize that this is your paper and no one else's. 1 through 7 vertically, your name at the bottom. Well, I'm going to give you here this. The first 6 of these things are going to be questions. I'm going to ask these questions only one time, so please listen as carefully as you possibly can and write down what you believe is the correct response. Number 7 is not going to be a question. It is going to be an old familiar cliche that I'm going to dress up in pedantic nomenclature and intellectual academic jargon, try to confuse you, but being great listeners, you'll fight through that malaise and write down the simple meaning of that particular explanation or verbiage. Outstanding. Way to go. Number 1. How well do you listen? Let's find out right now. First question, please. A man builds an ordinary house with 4 sides. Each side has a southern exposure. A bear comes to the door and rings the doorbell. What color is the bear? Don't look at me, write something down. Number 1, what color is the bear? No talking, please. No helping, no hinting, no sharing. Just listen and write. What color is the bear? Number 2, you're in a dark, damp cave with only one match. You have a kerosene lamp, an oil lantern, and a wood-burning stove. Which do you light first to achieve maximum heat? Number 2, how well do we listen? Number 2. Number 3, how many animals of each species did Moses take aboard the ark before the great flood? Pretty simple question, pretty simple answer there. Number 3. Number 4, is there any federal law against a man marrying his widow's sister? I always get a delayed reaction on that one. I don't know why, but always do. Number 4, all right. Number 5, an archaeologist claims that she's dug up a coin that is clearly dated 46 BC. Why is this person not telling the truth? Number 5. Number 6, it is Independence Day in the States. Fireworks are exploding, people having barbecues and going to the parks and beaches. And the question arises, is there a 4th of July over in England? No, that's a freebie. We do have a heart at the Archer Institute. That is our blue light special to ensure at least one right answer on everybody's paper. It's a kumbaya question. And of course, number 7, again, is not a question here, but an intellectual interpretation utilizing pedantic nomenclature and intellectual jargon. In the simplest terms, write down what this man's really trying to say. Number 7, a feathered vertebrae enclosed in the grasping organ has an estimated worth that is higher than duo encapsulated in the branched shrub. You've heard this old saying 1,000 times before. In the simplest terms, write out the true meaning of the message. Now, check your papers again for quality, accuracy, thoroughness. And if you will, please, being dynamic team members, exchange your papers with a team member. The honor system, well, we know how that works. Exchange your papers. Well, my dynamic team, let's see how well we did. Number 1, a man builds an ordinary house with 4 sides. Each side has a southern exposure. A bear comes to the door and rings the doorbell. What color is the bear? The bear is white. Oh, of course. All 4 sides facing south must be due north. North Pole, polar bear, white. Deductive listening. Get down. All right. You bad. I know you're bad. Kiss yourself. Go on. All right. Number 2. What do you light first in this dark, damp cave to achieve maximum heat? You gotta light the match. That's right. You knew that. You knew that. Right. Everything else needs an ignition source. You gotta light that match first. Now, for a pretty easy one here, number 3, how many animals of each species aboard this ark before the Great Flood? How many? 0. I said, how many did Moses take aboard the ark? Gotcha. Gotcha. Oh, man. It's amazing in my research how many will bowl. Oh, that's so easy. 2. You know, I went to Sunday school, 2. I set you up, see? The ark, flood, animals, Moses. We call that in psychology, of course, inferencing, meaning that we hear what we expect to hear, and we see what we expect to see, and could walk away with the distorted truth of reality. Dr. Charles Cooley, great writer, in the book called The Looking Glass Self, wrote these words, and I quote, he said, I am not what I think I am not what you think I am what I think you think I am. The double entendre of perception can distort reality. It's called a scotoma. It's not contagious, it's all right. Number 4, Is there any federal law against a man marrying his widowed sister? No, because of course, if he has a widow, where's he? Put a fork in him, he's done. Irrelevant, moot point, doesn't matter. Number 5, an archaeologist claims the coin is dated 46 BC. Why is this person not telling the truth? Because they didn't know they were in BC, right? What does BC stand for? Well, they didn't know. Honey, what's today's date? 46 before Christ. Thank you. They didn't know. They didn't call things BC to sometime in AD called post-dating. And for my blue light, empathetic, kumbaya experiential question, is there a 4th of July over in England? Of course, on the calendar. 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th? No. No, no, no. No, no. No. Now, I just took a tour of this place. I saw the big flag, all the eagles. I felt the chills of patriotism. I don't want to know. And of course, last but not least, a feathered vertebrae enclosed in the grasping organ has an estimated worth that is higher than duo encapsulated in the branch shrub. The old saying simply is, a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. All right. Get your papers back now. Get them back. Let's see how we did. Well, how many of my dynamic, empowered team members got all 7 correct? Would you please stand for the camera? Stand, be noticed, be seen, be applauded. Yes, give them a hand. Good job. And how many got just 6 right? Raise your hand. Because I'm going to give you what is called in the business a Wimbledon. And how many will never tell? True team members. I want to thank you for inviting me to talk with you this evening. I know you're very busy, a lot's going on in your lives. And for me, it is truly an honor to share a few thoughts about what we have learned over our experiences about this thing we call teams. It's exciting, it's scary, it's challenging. But I have learned that when people are able to break through the walls of fear and ignorance and labeling and really begin to join their mental capacities together, it is absolutely magnificent what they can create and what they can actually do. You all have experienced that in some point in your lives when you worked either on the yearbook in high school or something in college where people got together and began to brainstorm and share, and you were in, as Michael Jordan calls it, the zone. And the very thing you had to carry begins to carry you. The energy. Something happens beyond yourself. Something occurs. And we're going to talk about this evening, with all of the vicissitudes and challenges and pains that organizations face, why are they determined to make this thing team? Teamwork, team culture occur in America. With all of the challenges that we face, why teams? Vince Lombardi, who was one of the greatest coaches in our history, who was able to take a losing organization in Green Bay, Wisconsin. It was called many things. They called it Alcatraz. They called it Siberia. It was such a bad place to play that other coaches would say to their players, if you don't start playing better, I'm going to trade you to Green Bay. No, please, not Green Bay. Please, I'll do anything, not Green Bay. It was the outpost where players went to die. the elephant graveyard of the National Football League. And yet this coach took that losing organization and within 3 short years gave it a new name. It went from Alcatraz to Titletown, and he's the only coach that won 3 consecutive back-to-back-to-back championships. And the question was, how did he do it? He had a philosophy. And it was that if a team can begin to understand the what and the why, they can handle almost any how. During his first team meeting, he began to talk about this thing that we now call Kaizen, which is known as continuous improvement. It's an American concept that began in Green Bay, Wisconsin, when Lombardi said to his team that practice does not make perfection. Now, they have been told all of their lives, if you practice real hard, you can perfect things. He said not. Because, he said, you can practice something incorrectly and master the mistake. He said practicing perfection will lead to continuous progression. You can always better your best. And he told his team that day, we're going to focus, he said, on 10 basic plays. That's it. And the players cracked up saying, 10 plays? We had 115 last year. He said, yeah, I remember. Jack of all trades and masters of none. He said to his team that day, we're going to work on perfecting things. We're going to run these plays so extraordinarily well that the opposition will know what's coming, but they still won't be able to stop it. He said, it is easy to be ordinary. It's easy to be average, but it takes courage, conviction, and consistency to be able to excel. And my friends, after that presentation, a veteran player, been in for years, stood up and said, oh, sure, we've heard all of that before, and sat back down. And you could hear a microbe drop to the floor. And Lombardi said that day to that man in the back of the room, he said, sir, you probably have heard all this before, but the fact remains, you've never heard it from me. And after that talk to his team, his young backup quarterback, Bart Starr, ran to the phone and said to his wife that night, honey, we're going to be champions after one practice. Why teams? What has been the catalyst? What has been the impetus that's moving organizations? Keyword, to really change their, quote unquote, organizational culture. When I talk about culture, what does that really mean? We talk about how we have worked together, how we've been managed, and basically the American organizational culture had its genesis in 1911 by Dr. Frederick Winslow Taylor, who trained Henry Ford, Rockefeller, and Getty that the best way to organize the American worker would be to divide the workforce into the heads and the hands, the thinkers and the doers, and may the two never meet. And from that structure, a culture developed. And certain little phrases came forth, such as either it's my way or the highway, my way or no way. If I want your opinion, I'll give it to you. As far as motivation, beatings will continue until morale improves. But the fact remains that from 1945 to 1973, the top-down autocratic organizational structure made American organizations the envy of the world. It worked. But why? Why did it work? I always ask our 2,000 or so clients, why? And it's amazing what we hear back, why they do things, whether they do them. Some will say, why? Just because. We've always done it that way. It's almost like the family preparing for their holiday dinner. They go out and buy the beautiful, glistening ham and bring it home. And the wife and husband again to work on it. They get this huge meat cleaver. And the wife cuts 2 big chunks, off the ham. And her partner says, wow, that's a lot of meat missing from the ham. Why do you cut it that way before we cook it? And she thought about it, I don't know. That's how Mom cooked it for years. Well, let's find that's a lot of meat missing. They called Mom, why we cut both ends off the ham before we cook it? And Mom thought about it and said, I don't know. That's how Grandma did it for years. They called Grandma long distance, reached out and touched. Said, Grandma, why do we cut both ends off the ham before we cook? Grandma said, I don't know why you all still do it, but see, when I was cooking my ham, my pot was too small. No good reason to do it now. Just buy a bigger pot. We laugh at that trite but true story. But how many organizations today are confusing activity with accomplishment, having meetings where minutes are kept and hours are lost? I will tell you today, we do work globally. Are we getting smarter than the competition? That's all that matters. In a thinking society, in an innovative, creative society, the question that matters to an organization is, are we getting smarter, faster, and quicker than our competition? And if we are not, we die. When the rules of the game begin to change, either we're on the way or we're in the way. I've learned in my short time on this planet that change, my friends, pardon me, will never leave us like it found us. It will either make us better or make us bitter. But the choice is absolutely ours. Why teams? From 1945 to 1973, our culture was, don't ask why, do as you're told. Take orders, become a master at one thing, plug in this widget, answer this, do it well. Why did it work? Please write down these 3 reasons why the top-down autocratic organizational structure in American organizations was successful from 1945 to 1973. Number 1, the first reason was after 1945, what just ended? Well, American organizations basically had no global what? We had no competition. Of course, we know the story. We know after World War II that Japan had been bombed, Germany was divided, Africa was starving, China was sleeping. Who was there to compete with American global interests? My friends, here's my warning. When we have an economic monopoly, we can organize ourselves in any structure and succeed in spite of ourselves and think the reason for our success is our structure and be lulled to sleep. The second reason why the model worked was because there was tremendous pent-up demand for American goods and services after World War II. If your country has been destroyed by war, what must your country do? It must what? What do you need to rebuild? Everything. And if you're the only store left open, how will your store do? Cha-ching! Are you kidding me? We had to rebuild Japan, rebuild Germany, rebuild France, rebuild England, and they all had to come to us. We made money hand over fist. And there was also, during this time, pent-up demand from the American family for our goods and services. Why? Well, we had experienced what is called in psychology a significant emotional event. Before World War II, there was what? The Great Depression. 80% unemployment in Cleveland, Ohio, and Detroit. Farms collapsed. Banks didn't work. How many know either of parents or grandparents that grew up during this time? Can I see your hands? In a general sense, how would you describe these individuals? They're very frugal, thrifty, even a little tight. We go to their homes like museums. We're stepping over stuff. Why don't you throw it away? No! But it has no purpose. You don't know yet. You go in the cellar, it's a fruit market. It's preserves and deer and venison and chickens running around and water everywhere. What is this? They were saying, and the thing is, it happened before. It could happen again. But this time they'll say we're ready for them. World War II, sacrifice. Uncle Sam needs you. Do your fair share. Meat rations, gas rations, all the rest. Is this trip really necessary? When the war was over, we were tired of death, deprivation, destitution. We wanted to enjoy the good life. 1950s, Disneyland opened up. Vegas began to boom. Teenagers were created. We didn't have them before. And one act of Congress changed the demographics and the ethnocentric ideologies of the American workforce. We created the middle class with the GI Bill. Come home, go to school, no money. Build a house, no money down. And we had pent-up demand. We had lots of babies. And our cars were huge. Remember those cars, 1950s? Living rooms that moved. Aircraft carriers on land, chrome steering wheels this big, a big front couch for a front seat. You drive that thing, you hit a deer in the road, no contest, little bump, keep going. You take your car today and hit a deer, the deer goes, no contest. And you carry your car home in a bag. But hey, nobody cared. People were just doing, where are you going? Just cruising. What is that? Just going nowhere. Why? Gas cost 25 cents a gallon, fill it up, and it all worked very well. And during that time, the third reason why it worked was because the demographics, the ideologies of the American workforce fit the model perfectly. We have been conditioned by war, and a good soldier doesn't ask why. He will simply do, or it worked. And that's when granddad or grandpa or mom, dad could leave high school, the 10th grade, go work for a big company and retire at 65, and it worked. Well, there are three reasons why teams are here to stay. Please write these down. This is why your children are being taught in teams now in schools. Why teachers are teaching in teams to prepare the generations to come how to work cross-functionally, how to share information, how to be more effective in a team-based environment as we grow as a culture. First reason, number one, the forces of global competition and the epidemic of quality, the forces of global competition and the epidemic of quality, are increasing exponentially the supervisory span of control in America. I will repeat it once more. The forces of global competition and the epidemic of quality are increasing exponentially the supervisory span of control in these United States. It is a phenomena that's changing the American landscape as I speak. The forces of competition and the epidemic of quality are increasing exponentially the supervisory span of control in these United States. What does that mean? Well, we have all read about some terminology in our business courses and magazines and Business Week and Time magazine that we call it many things now. Some call it downsizing, some call it right-sizing. They call it in California, we're going to bring you in, then we're going to free up your future. But the fact remains, American organizations since 1973 have been shrinking vertically and growing horizontally in order to respond quicker and faster to competitive pressure and to improve the quality index in our products. You see, years ago when we had a monopoly, we said to customers, you can have three things. You can have it fast, you can have it cheap, and you can have it good. Pick any two. You couldn't get all three, but today, because here it is, my friends, quality is no longer an American entity unto itself. Quality's in China, it's in Japan, it's in Malaysia. We do work Pacific Rim, it's in South Africa. We're seeing it now as a global commodity. And as that increases, organizations shrink vertically, and the span of control for a frontline American manager has grown exponentially. Key point, 10 years ago in America, the average span of control for a frontline American supervisor was 1 to 7. We had 7 people to manage. 10 years ago, today, as we shrink vertically, grow horizontally, it has grown from 1 to 7 to 1 to 35. Year 2003, 1 to 65. In Japan right now, 1 to 150. We're being told, do more with, you've been there. Now you tell me today, how is a frontline supervisor going to be able to manage, using our old terminology, 150, 65 very independent, Generation Xing personality types? Do you think we're going to teams because it's a nice thing to do? It is best business practice. Without teams, we're going to lose our minds. Give you an example. This is why you're hearing about this most confusing term we call empowerment. Like that's the cure to everything. He said the magic word. Empowerment. What does it mean? You see, I've learned something as a psychologist, and that's this. That today's American managers have the same exact psychological trauma that a parent has who has a kid who just turned 16 years of age and can now drive the family car. That's the dilemma. How many parents actually say, hey, you turned 16. Oh, that's great. Here are the keys to the family car. Don't leave yet. Here's the gas credit card. It's Friday night. Go drive. Come back. Whatever. Not in my neighborhood. No. What happened in my neighborhood was this. You turned 16, huh? That's nice. You can count now. Here are the keys to the family car. Just sniff them. If they get lost now, you can find them. But as far as you driving this car that's in my name by yourself, oh no, not today. If you want the car, guess what? I'm going to be with you. Oh, it's going to be embarrassing, Dad. Don't worry. I'll stoop down, but I'll be there. How many kids you knew were driving cars with their parents on the floor? Now, think about all of the inherent risks involved in that parent transferring those keys to that teenager. Tell me, what were some risks? What are some risks today? You talk. Imagine I'm Oprah in drag. Talk to me. What is it? Tell me, what are they? Accidents. What else? Tickets. Surging insurance. Yeah, no. What else? Drinking and driving. A bad experience. Oh, inexperience. I was speaking to a leadership group about this issue, and there was a clergyman in the audience. And he stood up with a baritone voice. He said, I have a concern. Yes, sir. Unauthorized intimate activity in dark places. With all of those concerns, the keys are being transferred every single day. With death being a concern, accidents, property damage, insurance rates, loss of property. Why? You know why? We know how to be good parents. We know how instinctively to build champions, to build trust. We do it every day. We come to work and forget how it's done. We know how to empower. We know how to motivate. We know how to steal greatness. We do it every day. What do? We use the 3 C's to build trust. Write these down very quickly. That's how we empower. We build in the 3 C's of trust building, that we let this teenager show forth the 3 C's of their trust and credibility. Number 1, we allow them to show us their demonstrated competence. We create an environment that they can show us their competence. They get the driver's license, they start the car, they back it up, they drive to the convenience store, visit it and back. See, I can do this. Second C, demonstrated confidence under pressure. Make the right choices, turn the right corner, use the seatbelt, use the blinkers. They go on the freeway, change correctly. They have confidence under pressure. And thirdly, we allow them to show us demonstrated consistency. Those 3 C's are the conduits of trust that allow us to transfer the keys, which is also called authority. There are 4 basic concepts, my friends, that best define this thing we call empowerment. Write down these 4 words very quickly. AIRA, authority, input, resources, and accountability equals empowerment. Authority, input, resources, and accountability equal this thing we call empowerment. Do you have the authority? Are you giving input? Do you have the resources to be successful? And how then can we measure your team's progress and development? All of this is being created because of the initial comment that the span of control is increasing. We have to find a new way in order to maximize our intelligence and our power, because this is not 1911. We have built homes, put kids through college. We understand. We have in our briefcases a mainframe computer. We've changed the rules of the game. We must change the work environment to match the rules. Second reason why teams are here to stay. Very important reason. I would say the most important reason in my research is this. People often ask me, Mr. Archer, is this a management-driven process? No. Who is driving this metamorphosis, this transformation to teams? I will tell you, it is your customer. Customers are demanding this metamorphosis. Why? Well, back in our days of having a monopoly, we had a customer goal. It was called customer satisfaction. We know about that, don't we? It's in our mission statements, it's in our brochures. We like the term, it sounds nice. Customer satisfaction. I'm here to tell you today that concept is antiquated, dangerous, and deceptive. We call this, in psychology, the study of the reticular activating system and how nomenclature affects performance under pressure. What do words really mean to people? Because psychologically we think in pictures, not in words. So when we hear about satisfaction, what does that really mean? I want you to go back to your grade school report cards. Go back, warp speed, go way back now. Back to grade school. Those pieces of cardboard or paper controlled our lives. There were certain letter grades there that gave us freedom or bondage. We knew that. There were some kids who were so afraid on report card day, they couldn't look. They tell their friends, here, look for me. And watch their face, can I go home? If you saw straight A's, what did that mean? You walked on water. You walk in the door, kick it down, wave that powerful, Mom, Dad, straight A's. Can you see? Can we say bike? And parents would freak out. Straight A's, you could have the car. They would call the priest, the pastor, the rabbi, Grandma, he has straight A's, and she has our genetic code. We produced this. It was power. You bring home straight B's, not bad. Triple in the park, good job. Bring home D's? No, 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 no. D's are for dumb, honey. That's not you. And we didn't want to go home if we got the flag. It always confused me, the flag. Now listen, every other grade was either in black or blue ink. The flag was in, got a few, huh? When parents saw the F's, oh, they couldn't breathe right. The legs would give out. You got F's? Tell me something, please. Did you show up? Either extreme grade produced an emotional response, yet there was an esoteric grade, an existential grade called the C grade. What were some words that described the C grade? Who remembers? Average, what else? Fair or satisfactory. That the student did just enough to meet a preset standard to pass. No dean's list, no scholarships, you keep moving. Then you get fooled one day. You go to graduate school, get 2 C's, they ask you to leave. But it was satisfactory. They lied to you. When people hear about satisfaction, they know what it means. Do just enough to maintain the status quo. It is no longer enough in a competitive, innovative, creative, global economy. In our research, there's a new apex a new paradigm, a new goal. It is called, write it down, CD. The great companies are doing it now. It is called aiming for customer delight, not satisfaction. It is part of their philosophy, their daily work ethic, their daily phone conversations. We are aiming to delight them, not simply to satisfy them. Tom Peters calls it, my favorite speaker, the pursuing of the wow experience. That people say about your service, wow, about your intelligence, your quickness on the phone, wow, they're helpful, they're dynamic, wow. Ken Blanchard calls it turning the customer into a raving fan who goes out bragging about you and selling you for free because they are now a fan. Wow fan, wow fan. It's happening many places. My wife and I back in Cleveland, we have 4 children, 3 boys and a girl. And during this past summer, soccer, football, all the rest, the house can teeter on explosion. Friends are over, pizza parties, cleats, you name it. The house teeters. We go to Disney World. There are at least 400,000 kids there. Diapers hanging, noses running, popcorn popping, cotton candy sticking, and the place is absolutely spotless. When I go looking for dirt. I do. Like they have trees that behind your back sweep up between trees when you look at them. How do you keep it so clean? I can't imagine. And then you have these poor souls cocooned in the goofy suit. 105 degrees on the blacktop. You're dying. You walk with your family. Water. Water? Follow me. Come on, come on, come on. How can you be so happy? It's hot. You wouldn't want me one of those suits. Some poor innocent child would have a psychotic break. Walk up to me, Mr. Mouse, pulling on me, and I'm dying in the thing. Where's the bathroom? Ooh, it's hot in here, boy, it's hot. Bathroom, any place you want it to be, go for it. It's hot. Kid walk away. Mickey rad. But the fact remains, from day one at Disney U, they teach you do not have a customer, you have a guest. You get a chance, read a great book called Built to Last, The Successful Habits of Visionary Companies. And Disney has one mission, very simple, for all their movies and hotels and parks and theme parks, is simply this: make people happy. Whatever it takes, that's the vision. Make them say, wow. It's even happening at the fastest growing city in America, the city of Las Vegas. And psychologically, it should not be. You see, the average person goes to Vegas and loses $500 a trip. But they come back weird. They don't come back like they've lost, like they should be. I've been to Vegas. They took all my money. No, they come back. Been to Vegas. Lost 500. It was great. Going back next year. Somebody help me with that. I have a friend that says, I'm going back to visit my money. But they wow you there. Team members, friends. We have grown a company that began with 2 clients 5 years ago. We now have 2,000. We understand this thing, what is called delight. Wowing. Giving 125%. What are you doing that is turning your customer into a raving fan? Because that fan becomes a future seed for success. And the reason why that's so critical is because my favorite writer from Harvard University, Dr. Peter Drucker, says, and I quote, that the average American organization today is facing the 3 C's of overwhelming complexity, of increasing competition, and of tumultuous accelerated change. That if American organizations are going to be able to sustain a global competitive advantage beyond the year 2000, there must be, in many cases, my friends, a philosophical break with the past. My theme for this first part of my lecture has been simply this: that one of the greatest barriers to future success for any organization can be their past success. Assuming what has brought us here today will automatically carry us to the future is a death wish for any organization. Either we're on the way, being innovative, asking why, finding new ways, not rebuilding but retooling, or we're in the way, being crushed. And this is why in our research, teams are unlocking the creative energy of today's citizen. Give you an example. We work with Saturn Corporation. You've seen the Saturn commercials. We'll take a break after this. And they show this guy that I've been working there for decades. He worked at the old GM, and he said, back in the old days when I was making my car, if I saw a problem with a car, I had no power to stop it, to make the correction. I had to wave down a steward who would wave down a superintendent, who waved down the plant manager, who would wave down somebody else, and maybe after 20 cars were made, they may stop the line. He said, because of that, we would tell our families, don't buy a car that's made on a Monday or a... It was the employees who began that warning. He said, I had to check my brain at the door. He said, you know, I had a lot of ideas on how to make these cars better, but nobody never asked. He said, my best songs were going to my grave, never sung, because I wore a blue collar, I wore blue jeans, and I wore combat boots. I had ideas. I've made this car for 20 years. I could listen to a machine and tell you it wasn't running right. But nobody ever asked me. He said, I work at Saturn now, where we have teams. And he says, you know, if I see a car that's not being made right, who do you think has the power and has the authority to stop that line that will cost us more than $50,000 a second? He says, me and my team. He says, they trust us now. They believe us now. And he says, now I bring my soul, my spirit, my mind to work because they view me as a partner, not simply as a cog in a machine. Teams are changing the landscape in American society. George Bernard Shaw wrote these famous words, and I quote, he says, you see things as they are and ask why. I dream things that never were And I simply ask, why not? Dare to be great. It is an amazing thing when an idea has come whose time is now. No organization, society, or system can prevent its maturation. Because you are the geniuses that will take America beyond the year 2000 for future generations to say, this was their finest hour. What now are the key ingredients that will allow an organization to have a breakthrough instead of a breakdown as it relates to teams? What is it that makes teams either these dynamic organizations, organisms that grow incrementally, or other groups that seem to self-destruct and move backwards because of their lack of focus and direction? We're going to talk about now what I call some of the basic characteristics that we're going to have to master today in order to lead our teams to success. And the first and most important issue I'd like you to write down is organizations that have successful teams clearly understand the power of this thing we call vision and visionary leadership. What is vision? We hear this term all the time in boardrooms now and 50,000 books about vision. But in a sense, for this application, what does it truly mean? Well, defined academically, vision basically means this, that it is having the ability with power, conviction, and clarity to be able to describe to others a preferred future state, and then to create an environment that allows people to achieve that future state, to call forth those things that be not as though they were, to be able to describe that future state with such clarity that people are motivated and compelled to achieve it. It was Dr. Martin Luther King in his profound book, The Strength to Lead and Love. He wrote these words, and I quote, he said, "If a group of people have not found at least one thing for good they're willing to stand on, fight for, and defend, that group is not fit to lead. For either we shall stand for something good or fall for anything." Vision. Even Henry Ford wrote these words when trying to create the V8 engine. He told his engineers what he wanted, the vision. They came back, it can't be done. It's an engineering impossibility. And he said that day, whether if you think you can or think you cannot, either way you are absolutely right, that your attitude will determine your altitude and your perspective will determine your performance. Even Margaret Thatcher, now being held for her work in the 80s to reform the British economic system, today being revered and applauded as the first woman prime minister, she wrote these words, and I quote, she said that it is my job to recognize that I cannot change the past. There are people in my government who can maintain the present. She said, it is my unique responsibility as the leader of this nation to shine a spotlight into the future and then to encourage and inspire others to achieve that future vision. People often say, well, isn't vision overrated? How important is it for a team to grow and succeed? I take you back to 1940. England's being bombed by the Luftwaffe of Nazi Germany. Children running under girders, buildings collapsing, smoke, ashes everywhere, wearing helmets with flashlights. And there was a man, a leader named Winston Churchill, who spoke to his people that day, fearful and afraid, discouraged and confused, and he uttered these words that changed the direction of their mentality and affected the war because of vision. He simply said, and I quote,